Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Live here, and today we're reviewing for you The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom on the Nintendo Switch. This review was originally written by the exceptional Alana Hagues and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling. Let's dive right into things. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom contains many great life lessons we should all take into consideration. Get others to do the work for you, talking to cats is worth your time, making friends with spiders is good, horses can smell carrots from hundreds of miles away, oh, and of course, beds solve all problems. Okay, in all seriousness, as the first brand new top-down Zelda since 2015's Triforce Heroes, Echoes of Wisdom is a near-perfect marriage of the old and the new. As with many of Nintendo's best titles, this adventure completely understands the magic of play, the wonder of curiosity. This time, however, that essence has been distilled into a tiny top-down experience, complete with that beautiful minifigure look from Grezzo's Link's Awakening remake, and the developer is back to make more magic yet again with the franchise. For the first time in a mainline entry, we're not counting those, Zelda is unabashedly the hero, with no caveats. But this is still a Legend of Zelda game, meaning structurally it'll be very familiar to anyone who's played a 2D Zelda before. Go here, solve a local problem, go to dungeon, fight a boss, all that sort of stuff. It's genuinely exciting to explore Hyrule in this art style, and looking at the glossy trees of Hyrule Field and the crystal clear waters that you'll find in Jabal Waters and Farron Wetlands, it's just an absolute treat. The flute rendition of Hyrule Field's theme, complete with a new flourish of Zelda's lullaby, equally gets our hearts racing. Whilst Echoes of Wisdom is without a doubt a classic Zelda, it takes that old formula and twists it into something fresh thanks to the titular character herself. You can't just go in with your Master Sword and hookshot, you actually have to rewire your brain on how you tackle every situation thanks to the Tri-Rod, a staff given to the princess by her new adorable companion, Tri. This, simply put, can be used to make a copy of the various items and enemies across Hyrule. As you progress, you'll amass a huge catalogue of echoes to summon for your every need, and you'll be able to cast multiple at once as you level up your floating little yellow friend. It's never not satisfying to send out a horde of moblins to destroy a group of enemies whilst you're cutting grass or picking up rocks to find ladders or hidden items. Every boss and every enemy encounter is its own little puzzle to solve, whether it's using the right monster echoes for the situation or utilizing the elements through water blocks or braziers. In a pinch, however, Zelda can use a sword by turning into sword fighter form. Eventually, you'll get the use of a bow and some bombs, giving you a brief snippet of Link's gameplay, but it isn't a crutch. Despite being extremely powerful, Zelda can only maintain this form for a few seconds, a little bit longer when fully upgraded, so if you want to use it, you'll need to make it count. Using echoes, Zelda fully embraces the plasticky aesthetic, and Hyrule feels like a giant toy box stuffed full of puzzles where everything from getting a heart piece to fighting enemies requires careful consideration. Where big trees in Link's Awakening or A Link to the Past served as obstacles separating regions, Zelda can simply use beds, rocks, or even clouds to climb up and walk just all over them. It grants a level of freedom we've never seen in a top-down Zelda before. With Echoes, comparisons to both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are more than apt, just on a much smaller, much more controlled scale. Like the open-world 3D adventures of the Switch era, Echoes of Wisdom gives you more to do outside of exploring and using echoes. Side quests provide fun little diversions that lead you to hidden caves, optional bosses, and sometimes even accessories to help Zelda along the way. You can run around and collect stamps for Hyrule's resident weird little chap stamp guy. You can also eventually get automatons, little robotic creatures that look rather cool, but feel a little useless, especially as you amass an army of echoes throughout the game that can do pretty much everything these metallic guys can. Back to the more traditional Zelda qualities, similar to the Dark World, there's a strange alternate realm for Zelda to explore, the Still World. As Zelda enters menacing purple rifts throughout the game, you'll uncover fractured pockets of Hyrule you need to restore. Trees are ripped from the ground and floating, bodies of water are now suspended midair, and the citizens of Hyrule are in stasis, dripping with black goop. Navigating these little segments is extremely fun. Many are optional and reward you with upgrades for try, but most are home to a true Zelda staple, Dungeons. Echoes of Wisdom applies its whole philosophy to the series' vintage top-down dungeons to great effect. None of them are hugely challenging, but they are classic Zelda to a T, complete with puzzles, keys, locked rooms full of monsters, and more besides. There are also side-on sections both in and out of dungeons that require more smart use of your echoes. Even, and we can't believe we're saying this, the stealth sections are fun, especially if you accidentally box the soldiers in together so only one can see you, but he's blocked by all the others. We're so glad we can make more stupid decisions like this in a top-down environment. Plus, if you want more of a challenge, you can always hop into hero mode at any point, and it's worth it because it definitely bites. On a side note, my entire playthrough has been in hero mode, and whoo lordy. Another ability you'll need to get to grips with is Bind. Using Try, Zelda can quote-unquote bind herself to enemies and objects and either shift them around in accordance with her own movements or follow their movements. Or you could just, like us, use it to drop enemies into bottomless pits. It's all valid. It does take some getting used to, particularly after countless hours of using Magnesis or the Ultra Hand, but it can be extremely useful. When you're in busy rooms filled with crates, boulders, and enemies, you might need to target more specifically what you want to bind to. Unfortunately, this involves using the target button over and over again until you land on what you're aiming for, whether it's in combat or just to solve a puzzle. You don't need to lock on if the item is right in front of you, but when items are high up or the enemies are airborne, targeting becomes essential, and cycling through makes things just a little bit more fiddly than we feel they really needed to be. There's another lingering problem, one which was present in the Link's Awakening remake, and one that you may well have noticed already: performance dips. Just like the 2019 game, Echoes of Wisdom's frame rate, despite aiming for a consistent 60 frames per second, is all over the place. If you like spinning around in the overworld and cutting grass, you'll notice pretty frequent frame drops. Hebra Mountain and the Gerudo Desert also suffer, where sandstorms and snow make things feel really quite choppy. Inside buildings and dungeons, though, the game is pretty much silky smooth, which makes the frequent overworld stutters in both docked and handheld mode even more noticeable. Other than that, though, this 15 to 20 hour adventure is a Zelda fan's dream. With classic 2D gameplay and 3D experimentation coming together, Echoes of Wisdom's originality reminds us that there's definitely space for both Zeldas in this world, beyond just remakes and sequels. That alone makes us happy to wield the Triword and cause some serious chaos for the monsters of Hyrule. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom should be the new standard for top-down Zelda going forward. Rather than abandoning the classic formula, Zelda has shown that the old and the new can come together and produce wonderful results that reward experimentation and reinforce the joy of play. This is easily in contention with the likes of A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds as one of the best top-down adventures in the series, and we hope we don't need to wait another 35 years for Zelda to take a starring role again. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, you're getting a 9 out of 10 from us. You've reached the end of the review. That means it's time for Alex's personal thoughts, and I absolutely adore this game. When I played the preview, I got a snifter of what I was to expect, but then finally getting my hands on the game proper, it's just a different world entirely. Not to say that the preview was misrepresentative or anything like that, but it was just like, it was like looking through a keyhole as opposed to opening the door. As I mentioned as a little aside in the review, yes, my entire game was in hero mode, and it really knocks you for 6. You take so much more damage than you might immediately expect. It's much more in line with something like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, in the sense that certain enemies will just hit you once, and it'll take off, I don't know, like 8 hearts or something like that in hero mode. Sometimes, I'm sure there's times where it's taken more, but even so, you'll just see hearts go bleh, down to nothing, and you can think, oh, I don't need to heal, I've got like 7 hearts, and then you'll die. I love it! I did see in the comments of the preview that there were some people that were a little bit concerned that because you can do a puzzle in so many different ways, therefore it's going to be dead easy. And I wouldn't say any of the puzzles were like hugely challenging or anything like that, but it does kind of encourage you to use things in interesting ways, and oftentimes it'll throw, like a load of powerful enemies in there at the same time, and you've got to navigate whilst dodging projectiles, and you can't fall into the water because it's full of great big shark monsters that I can't remember the name of. And it's those elements that make even the puzzles in hero mode even more challenging, because you're having to avoid enemy fire and stuff like that. It is tough. It really is, but in such a rewarding way. I loved every second I played this game. Oh, but the performance really is just... Oh, I kind of wish, in a way, that they just tried to keep it at 30. Like, don't get me wrong, when it's 60, it is delightful, but it's not there often enough to really kind of justify it, particularly in the overworld. Maybe if they'd done like a kind of a split frame rate thing where it aims for 30 in the overworld and 60 indoors and like in dungeons and the still world and stuff like that, maybe that would have been better, but I don't know. But even taking that into consideration, I didn't care. I loved the game too much. It's just so lovely. One thing that I really want to emphasize is just how rewarding it is to explore. And I'm not talking, sort of, oh, you might find some rupees under a rock or something, but it reaches the point where the rewards that you get in these little side areas, like little caves and things like that, which are innumerous, the rewards that almost reach the point of being a little bit underwhelming because there's so many, and to be honest, the reward is doing the extra fun gameplay by itself, just going into a cave and, oh, it's not just a little space or something like that, it's like several rooms, and sometimes you may even find what is essentially like a mini dungeon. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there was a point where I got a quest from someone who's like, oh, could you go here and check something out for me? And it's like, yeah, okay, what's it going to be? And it was like a 20-minute dungeon, or dungeon-esque type area. It was gorgeous. The game doesn't hold your hand except for through, like, the early parts of the game, and it's teaching you stuff. But as soon as you're sort of let free, the game's just like, hey, you work it out for yourself, and that's so rewarding, and that's probably why things aren't too challenging, all things considered, except in hero mode. But the fact that you've worked it out without anyone saying, oh, go here, and even the waypoints are usually, sort of like, very much like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. The waypoints will point to where you got the quest rather than where you need to go. Someone will say, oh, yeah, there's a, there's a cave up in the north area of this town or something to that effect. And it won't give you a waypoint as to where it is. It'll give you a waypoint as to where you got it, so you can go and check the information again. You can also do that on the pause screen. But it means that you've got to work it out. And that's one of the things that I love so much about side quests, especially in the likes of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and now Echoes of Wisdom. It's a delight. It's an absolute delight. And playing as Zelda for the first time properly, in a mainline game, is just absolutely superb. She plays completely differently. It's such a breath of fresh air. I really hope this isn't the last time this happens, because my god, is this game a good.